Today we are speaking to Jay Nanduri. Jay Nanduri is a technical fellow in Microsoft. Welcome, Jay.
Okay, thanks, Rafa.
Before I ask Jay what is technical fellow, let me give a quick 2-minute context for people who are not living in Redmond and know everything about Microsoft. So in Microsoft, you get hired generally as a developer, and then after a couple of years, you get promoted to senior developer. And I heard people saying once you become a senior dev in Microsoft, you made it in the world of developers. Anywhere you will go, you will get a job offer because you are a senior developer in Microsoft. So after senior, you become a principal developer, and there you can spend a couple of years because it's 65, 66, 67, they have different levels there. And after that, you become a partner dev, and then you become a distinguished engineer. You become distinguished engineer when you start impacting a couple of products inside Microsoft or maybe in industry also. And you become technical fellow, which is the last rung of where you can reach in Microsoft, is when you start impacting the industry itself. And I think there are a handful of people who are technical fellow. Satya is a CEO, but he is not a technical fellow. So as you can see, there are very, very few people are technical fellow. So Jay, my first question is, what is technical fellow? Like, what do they do?
Thanks, Rafa. Thanks for having me here. I know I get this question a lot. What do technical fellows do? I would say that each technical fellow at Microsoft is different. There are people who had a significant impact on a product or on a technology or on the industry or the people that are there. So it is very humbling to see your company sometimes. So it's not, I know you have given a progression of how it happens. I joined Microsoft 22 plus years back, where I joined as a developer, and I worked through different kind of places. I was also very fortunate to get an opportunity to work on good problems that had good visibility, and which led to creating an impact on the product, on the company, and the industry. And that's what leads to technical fellow. I'm not a typical technical fellow in a way, because most of the technical fellows I admire and I respect at Microsoft, who have been kind of people that I look up to, they're individual contributors. I am in a mixed kind of a mode. I also manage a decent sized team and 2 products. So in a way, I can impact. My impact is compounded with the individual contribution I do, and also the things I was able to execute through a team so that we can have a bigger impact.
Perfect. So what products you are working on?
So I'm currently working on 2 different areas. One is a fraud protection area. I work in the Dynamics product team within Microsoft, which is under cloud and AI team. And we recently, in last October, actually, we launched this product called Dynamics Fraud Protection. It is a first time in the industry. We kind of set up a two-sided marketplace where merchants and banks are there. We created a consortium for merchants where all the fraudulent activity could be evaluated against consortium. It's a data gravity play, it's an AI play, it's an optimization play, so which is doing very well. And we recently also added 2 other capabilities called account protection and loss prevention and things like that. Along with that, because I am a big fan of this motion called consortium motion, where you bring data from disparate entities together and reason over it, because big data gives you big knowledge, and big knowledge gives you big models, okay, or very smart models. So that's why we are also applying these concepts to supply chain area. As you can see, the current black swan event like COVID that we're going through, all the supply chains were impacted quite a lot. And how can we make sure that if for the next gray swan or the black swan, even God forbid it doesn't happen, but if it happened, how can we create a place where the impact is much less? So we are in the process of private proving this product in this it's called supply chain visibility area. So these are the two areas that I work in.
Okay, perfect. So you are working in product. Obviously, you are very technical there, and then you are managing team also. So what is leadership to you?
So this reminds me a little bit about I was a few weeks back, I was talking to a bunch of teens about how to be successful and everything. And when I asked this question what leadership is, they felt that managing people. Okay, so the reason why I'm saying that is, for most of the people, leadership looks like you're managing people. Actually, there are a bunch of varieties of leaderships that exist. There is what the kids were referring to is people leadership, and the other one is, if you are defining a technology, you are creating vision, it is technical leadership. If you are an army person, what you need to do at that moment, how exactly you need to react, it is a situational leadership. So it is emotional leadership. There are a bunch of different leaderships that exist. For me, leadership is not a single light switch that if you turn on, it's almost that. But in a particular place that you are in, if you are able to work with multiple people so that what you produce could not be produced by a single individual, and the person who is bringing that together, that energy together, so that we can deliver that, I call it as a leadership. And there are a bunch of different forms you need to bring it together to be able to deliver. So and I believe I believe in a leadership which is serving leadership. That's what they call it. I'm from India. I worked very briefly in India too, so I know what is in India. Boss means, okay, you made it big, you're able to manage people. And I realized is actually, as a leader, as a manager and everything, you have more responsibility for people than many people think you are. You're responsible for their lives, you are responsible for their career, you are responsible for what they're going to produce, their care, there's a whole bunch of things. So in a way, you are serving them, because they are trying to accomplish with you something that you or I could not individually accomplish.
Right, perfect, very good. Because everybody have their own definition of leadership, and that's why I asked you what is the leadership it means to you. And this is very interesting that you are saying leadership means you are serving, because a lot of people think that leader means you are charging ahead and showing the path, but your take is a little different than others. And I think these are the things you have to learn here. If the young kids are listening to this video, that leadership is about serving and making sure that how you can make others better and perform and produce things which is not produced by an individual, right?
Yep.
So that's very good. So Jay, I know when you start in Microsoft, or for that matter in any other company, you start as a dev, and then you become dev lead, and then you become dev manager. There we call it M1, M2, M3, and M4. So at every level, you have to change yourself a little bit. You become dev lead because you are one of the best dev in the team. That's why you become dev lead. So I would like to hear a couple of advice from you, because you've been through all this journey. One or two advice for a new dev lead who have become just new today, like yesterday they were promoted to be a lead, and for people who are becoming dev manager M2. So what are a few things they should follow, or some advice for them?
So that's a very good question. And I mentor a lot of people, and very smart people actually make certain mistakes, and I had my own share of those mistakes. It is it is a reward and also humbling when your manager comes to you and say, said, hey, we want you to be a lead, we want you to manage this 5-6 people, and you own this product. It's a very proud moment, and the reality kicks in probably a week or two from then. Mm-hmm. For me, it was a very big learning moment, because I always was able to produce quite a lot as my individual contribution. I can work maybe 12, 14 hours, and I churn a lot of code in a particular way, in the way I think, and that was what development for me was. But when you are working with more number of people, there are different perspectives people are going to bring. There's a different way that they're going to think about the problem space, and they're trying to realize the same vision that you want to realize. The paths will be different. As a lead, first it'll take some time for you to understand that you have pretty much outsourced your success to these 5-6 people who are working with you, because never think that if you as a developer in a week you're able to churn out 1,000 lines of code, and now your team is churning out 5,000 lines of code. These 5,000 lines of code are going to be, you're going to have the same comfort level if you produce those 5,000 lines of code. That doesn't happen. And I used to do it in a very early of leadership, is when a junior developer wrote some code, I code reviewed in the night, I'm not happy, I used to rewrite the code. And I got to a point where I was doing probably 2.5-3 people's worth of work, but the problem started when the code went into production. Nobody was taking ownership of what the code they wrote, because if any bug happened or any live site event happened, I used to get calls saying that, Jay, remember you wrote this code. So that's when I realized it is not about finishing the task. It is able to finish the task and grow the people so that the people can work in a path that we as a team are comfortable with. Okay, and trying to understand the diversity, trying to understand how you can bring these multiple perspectives as an energy, as a 1 + 1 = 3 or a 5 or something of that sort, rather than thinking that I can now own the 5 developers worth of code and I will do it, because it's humanly not possible. Okay, right. So as a M1, that's what my first advice is going to be, is first to try to learn how you can bring the same energy in your developers. M1, I look at it is that previously you were responsible for X number of lines of code. Now, if you have 5 people, you have 5x lines of code. Okay, that's how you need to look at it. But you can only, that 5x is going to be successful only thing that the team gels together. Team has a trust between them. They know when to reach out when they're not able to do certain tasks, so that you can teach them. They always say that they teach people to fish rather than you fish for them.
Right.
So that is the concept that someone needs to adapt, so that the team becomes better over the time, so that you can focus on higher value things.
True. So one question I have, you said for M1, it is important to establish the trust in the team. So how one can do that? Like how you establish the trust in team? What things I can do for that?
So I give this concept, actually, if anyone even from my team is watching, I tell this all the time. Trust is a very simple concept in a work environment. If A doesn't surprise B, and B doesn't surprise A, there's a trust that they don't surprise each other.
Perfect.
At work environment, that's what you're looking for. A code that you write, the code that you change, a doc that you write, a comment that you make in a meeting, okay, how you talk about your colleague, how you are representing their work, okay, do you have intellectual honesty, that idea was your colleagues, not yours, when you're representing it. These are the things that actually form the trust. So that's why I tell people is, hey, exhibit behaviors in a 360-degree way, so that you are not surprising your colleagues.
Perfect.
Okay, that's what I say.
Yeah. So you did tell about M1 that they suddenly own a lot of code, and that's a very interesting thing. You said you are outsourcing your success.
Yep.
So obviously, if you have that mindset, you know your success depends on the team's success.
Yep.
And that's why you establish the trust in the team. And so what different things I will start doing when I become M2, when I become manager of managers? Is there a shift you will do in your management or thinking, or anything different you will do?
So, in general, I'll say one thing. This is my learning. In general, people management are generating this trust, getting so that if you have 5 people that are working in a team, what they could produce is probably equivalent to, if individually you're doing, probably takes 8x or 10x kind of time. You know what I mean? That's what it is. But however, when that aspect of the leadership or the management, it scales to any number. That's what is my personal, learning is, if you can successfully manage a team of 6 or 8 people, you can manage 1,000. But there are a certain, I think you're asking a very right question. Hey, is it enough that if you're doing code reviews, you're doing design docs, you're doing how you are actually doing this, is that enough? What happens is, as you become an M2, you own much bigger area. And at that area, you as the owner are responsible not only for the code, but also for the vision, also for the customer success, also for how you are planning yourself. All these things come into the picture. So at that particular point, suddenly a M1 who comes with how to do this pure engineering, that execution rhythm of bringing the code together and all, suddenly needs to be now split among 4 or 5 other tasks that you need to do. Okay? So I tell this to most of my mentors. I don't want to give a different message than what I give. For up till M1, say if your code authoring becomes important, when you go to M2, code plus vision authoring, document authoring, strategy authoring, plan authoring, communication, you know what I mean? Because now you need to bring your leads together on a line, but the leads need to be able to take their developers in the same path. And once you author it, how do you actually deliver that passionately to everybody, that the bigger team understands the reason behind this product is there, what causes the customer success, how does the success look like, can you actually talk about that, can you actually generate energy, generate passion among people, whatever the conversation you are having, whether it's a one-on-one, whether it is a coffee chat or at a lunch or anything, you need to exuberate that passion for the product so that you can show them that North Star where we are heading for. And being able to make that switch is the key thing. And another thing that I've learned through my personal exercise is, most of the time this happens is by authoring the vision document or what exactly the overall group needs to do. Because when we talk, the other person, you don't exactly know how other person understands. But when you write, there's only one way you write, okay? And a document is forward, there's one way. So now it forms a basis for your discussion, basis for your conversation. When you're having a one-on-one, you can ask, hey, did you read the doc that we're trying to do? Did you understand how your work contributes to that document, what you're trying to accomplish? And those are the kind of things are going to generate so much of a common understanding, and also people will march almost towards the same goal. I'm not saying that just by writing a doc you can ensure this, but in the end, how you evangelize the doc, how you make sure that the execution is according to the doc. And there is one statement I always tell to people: to win any war, you need to have a plan.
Right.
but no war was won according to the plan. So
True.
you will make changes. You will make changes to your vision doc. You will make changes to your plan. But you know what I mean?
Right.
You need people to be with you. People thinking alongside. So it is not just a one person thinking about it. By document, everybody is thinking through that. So that you need to have that feedback coming. How can you have that conversation? How can you hear about, you know, everybody's ideas, incorporate it? And that's where the the magic starts happening. That's what I call it.
Perfect. It's a very good answer. I was just looking for difference between M1 and M2, how you will change your thinking and what work you will do, what focus change and all that. But you talked about something very good, which was actually my next question, but you answered a little bit. It is about setting the vision, goals, and limit in the team, because every company have their own vision. And companies become successful or failure because if that vision of CEO or the founder's vision doesn't flow all the way down. And I see that in Microsoft, most often, this is one thing they do it very well. In fact, all the big successful companies do that. That's why they are so big and successful. That the vision flows from top to bottom. And that was my next question, which you answered a little bit, but I would like to hear anything other than what you just said about the doc you do, how you make sure and certain, because you have, 400-500 people team, and you have this vision, and you want to make sure everybody gets it. So talk about that a little bit. What all things you will do, and how do you have, all hands meeting?
So typically, this vision process for a particular product doesn't happen, if there are a bunch of different ways this happens, is whether you are trying to bring a net new capability into the market, or you're a V1 or you're a VN, that's what different. So in a V1, you are heading for a North Star, okay? And in that V1, you need to paint your North Star of where you want to be as a capability, as a product that has got financial viability, and your customers have something they can work with, because you cannot have only half of a capability where they need to bolt on something else or something like that. So you need to think holistically. Okay. First, when you think about that holistically, you need to, I believe in one thing, always paint the North Star, which is, if it is a V0, V1, paint it so big that even you and your team are scared about it. You know what I mean? One has to be a little bit, you need to have a bigger vision that you are trying to achieve. And now you need to take the vision and actually chunk it into pieces in which you want to execute. That's where the teams come into the picture. When you have 100 people team, 400 people team, 500 people team, the vision size and the vision granularity changes. Okay. For example, a vision paper at a bag, which is a 5,000 P bag, which is a business application group, a vision at that level, the granularity is much higher. We are talking about big things, but the vision, when a team under a particular application or a service it writes, the vision becomes more granular. It becomes more that you can start realizing what you want to draw. You're not talking about broad strokes anymore. You're talking about much more nitty-gritty, fine-grained details. And the vision needs to be accompanied with another strategy. How do we actually go ahead and execute it? How do you chunk it? What does the phase 1 look like? What does the phase 2 look like? Why do you take certain things in a phase 1? How do you do your user research? How do you actually look at market data, and how do you make decisions?
Right.
So when the vision is actually, you want to make sure that the people understand, the first thing I believe in is first writing a document. I generally write a document with my directs or anybody who are very good in the team, very senior, not only our directs, but somebody who's very senior in the team. We come together, we write this document, this paper. And this paper, will very clearly articulate the passion, the energy that we want to generate, and it would paint why this would win. When it is answering what do we want to do, why we should do it, and how we win. Okay, and how does it actually play with the rest of the things that are happening in your greater company. Okay, once you have that, you need to have people read through, and actually that is when you do a little bit of a bigger meeting, you try to explain people, send this doc a little bit ahead of the time, people read it, and guess what, only 30% of the people read and come to that. And most of the people, when you are trying to explain it, that's when they get interested, and some people, 20% go back and read the document after the meeting. Okay, and whenever you are having any other conversation, you need to get grounded. You need to, once you don't write the paper and you deviate from it without again communicating and things like that, you always get grounded. In a conversation, you talk about, hey, you need to refer back to, hey, this is what we said in the paper or whatever it is. So, and then the smaller teams need to write these adjunct papers, you know what I mean, how their work is going to be separated. So it is at a much finer granularity. Okay, and now you have this web of papers. Even a new person comes in and he wants to work on this,
right,
they can nicely go through this web of papers, and whichever the team that you are in, you get what the work you're doing and how does it connect to the mothership.
Wow, very good. Yeah.
Okay, and that is the right approach that has worked. It's not that in every project I was able to accomplish, but whenever I could accomplish, we had success in the end.
True.
And people understood. When you go to a live site, when you go to a design review, it's surreal when people start thinking about exactly what we're trying to achieve, and they're bringing very innovative solutions to be able to achieve that.
True.
So that you can see, when you are observing that group level conversation, you as a leader, you get a sense whether people are aligned or not.
Yeah, perfect. Very good. I know you have this grand vision and build very complex and big products. They are scaling out to, I can say, one of the biggest products you guys build in Microsoft. Now, and it is an intense environment. Intense environment means people are very, ambitious, hardworking, intelligent. So everybody is trying to do their best. Now, in this atmosphere, you are trying to produce the best product possible by the team. So it creates a lot of stress in people, in team. So how you manage the health of the team? In Microsoft, we call it WHI, Work Health Index. And all the managers are, in the review time, they will get 360 feedback. So at one end, you have to get the work done. Second end, the same guy is going to give you the feedback. So you cannot just, use the stick approach. It's a very fine balance. And I have not read anywhere in any book how to manage this thing. And I know, Jay, working with you, that you used to manage it pretty well. Your WHI used to be very good. So what is the secret there? How you keep the team health so good and still produce so complex products?
So that's a very good question. There is no like a checklist that I can give you that this is going to work. And I've had times where I had my WH is very low. You know what I mean, in some area or the other. But however, this is where it comes down to the principles, the values that you establish within the team. So, and this is a thing that I do with my teams, and I learned it from somebody, is whenever a new person is joining your team, you need to have a very good half an hour heart-to-heart conversation, and you need to talk about these values or ethos of the group. Okay? And I always tell people that, hey, these are the things which we value. Okay? Number one is integrity and honesty. Okay? Above all, we are human beings. First, you need to be a good human being. Okay, that's the number one. Number two is we try to innovate a lot in the code, in a vision and everything. So innovation is our second kind of an area that we want to thrive. This is the second value. Everybody needs to innovate. Innovation, so writing a document or creating an idea is not it. And then third one is execution. How do you execute on your ideas or innovation and everything? You need to have a very thoughtful execution. Just an idea doesn't cut it. And the last one, what I call, this is the thing earlier I was talking about, the trust and how you work with the team and how you make others better. Okay? Because in the fourth one, it actually grounds at the point that we want to build a star team rather than a team with a star individuals. You know, in Microsoft, the interviewing process and everything, we try to hire the best talent and everything. And somebody told me once that, hey, every good developer has excess luggage in some place or the other. This is the place that you need to have that conversation. Okay? And when you establish your ethos, and every time you see people are deviating from that in a meeting, it is not that you need to reprimand in front of everybody, but give people just-in-time feedback. Okay, there are certain places where I've seen an individual is not exhibiting any of these values. Okay, I have a 15 minutes conversation. Then when I'm walking out, I say that, hey, can we get a coffee? And actually give that example right and there, so that people can get that feedback. So these are the small adjustments actually make you run a much cohesive team.
Right.
And you need to the team would automatically try to understand that they need to work as a team. And when you are actually doing this most of the things actually fall in line. Hey, the respect, the diversity, hey, we need to take everybody's ideas into consideration. The third thing what I talk about is, hey, if somebody is working long hours, okay, how can I go and help him so that he can have a better work-life balance? You know what I mean? I think it is not just that the people are coming and help. A lead or a manager need to see that, hey, we did not do a good planning. Okay, we cannot accomplish all these things. Being able to cut, saying that, hey, for this release we won't do it. And all these things happen when you put your ethos together, so that people will be more than willing to come and talk about it. Once you create a team where people feel very open about talking about the tough things, that is the place that you want to be. Once people start actually surfacing that, and they see that their voice is heard, their concerns are heard, and an action is taken, automatically it leads to team health. And WHIs and all these are lagging indicators.
Right.
Okay, if you do all these things right, your WHIs and your LEIs, the leadership excellence score and all, they follow, because people see the work you are doing to be able to create a cohesive workplace where people respect each other. You know what I mean? And they feel that it's an extended family.
True. Very good. I think very good advice. And I think it's all based and everything is built on top of trust. So first thing is establish the trust, because as you said, you can give the feedback just in time. And if you don't have a trust established already, that may not go very well. So very, very good advice. So I will shift the gear a little bit now, coming back to the technology. In fact, our show focus is people, process, and technology. So my focus in this show is about people and processes. But technology is also important. I would like to know, when you are building these big products, so what are the best practices of engineering you are following? Is it all Scrum, Agile, Waterfall? I don't think anybody uses anything like that anymore. But just give me few tips, because what I am looking here is, if somebody goes in a company and he has to manage a dev team, and imagine there's no process, nothing. You have a bunch of developers and they're just writing code. What are the things you will establish there, right? And how things work in your own group. How you develop a product.
Okay. So I know this is, there are people very passionate about, process and everything. I'll give you a little bit an anecdote. I was fortunate to work on this product called Virtual Earth. In this Virtual Earth, at the time, I know, not throwing names, but Bill was very interested in this. So our team, we used to work very closely with Bill, even right from the authoring of the paper to showing him, bi-weekly, demos and everything. So we set a very tall goal for us that within 100 days that we are going to make this, it used to be maps.live.com. Before it was Bing Maps, it should be live maps. So we executed it, and I'll tell you, we hit it the 100th day, not going into the details. So on the final meeting, actually, we were showing everything, and we were doing high fives with everybody, and Bill was very happy, and he said, "Hey, what is the process that you guys used? Did you use Agile at the time?" This was in this is way back, 2006 or something.
Early,
like
yeah,
very early.
I remember.
At the time he asked, "Did you use a Scrum and everything?" So I gave an answer. It is, I told, yes, we are using a process.
So he was interested even to know that also, beyond product.
Beyond product.
Like
so
what processes you guys are using.
Yeah, what processes are you using? So I told, I think we are using a modified Scrum, or that worked well for us, Bill. But in the end, I said that it is not the process. It is the committed people that made this work. A process is of no value if people are not committed to it.
True.
Okay, so that's why I always answer this is, I know when they call process, a process, you need to pick a process that the people subscribe to and follow it.
Yes.
Okay, and process cannot just become an overhead.
Right.
It cannot just become a checkbox. Did you have your Scrum meeting? Do you have an Uber Scrum? And but what is happening there? Are people just coming together and chatting? How exactly are they going? How is the backlog managed? Who is doing all? So you need to have a rhythm, and you need to have that expectation of what needs to happen. The things that I take a lot of pride and care in is, how is the design done? Okay, when a particular component is getting designed, that there needs to be a rigor, that there is a design discussion. Okay, we have a weekly design discussion that we run, and that I've been doing for anybody who who has worked with me, that they will know that there is a design meeting that where every developer tries to come. We try to expand it to the entire audience. Some people dial in and they listen to it. This is a way your younger generation actually listening to the new ideas.
True,
you know what I mean? They know who to talk to when they get into some kind of an issue and things like that.
Right.
How exactly you write, and important decisions, how are they made and how are they documented?
Right.
Okay, for posterity. You know what I mean? People need to know, because a year later somebody is walking in, they don't know why a code is written or a design is done in a particular way.
Right.
Those are the things we take very seriously. How actually we run our ship room. Okay, how you run your live site. Okay, there is one thing that I have learned early in my career from the best is, live site meeting is very important, and the senior the person actually cares about the life side, the product is going to be much better.
True.
Because people are going to really say, "Oh, somebody cares about this." You know what I mean? So the behaviors actually get reinforced.
And do your devs also have a pager now for life side issues, or it's a DevOps team?
So we have a DevOps, and we follow the DevOps, and actually there is a DRI, directly responsible individual who has that duty for that week for a particular component.
Right.
But when he or she cannot solve that problem, they can pull other people in. It is a typical process in most of the people that run in. And the only one thing I emphasize in the live site meetings is, what have we learned from an incident that happened?
Right.
Okay. And what did we do so that if this incident happened again tomorrow, that we at least know it has happened. Okay. And second time, it should not happen. Why
True.
it could not? There are certain things you cannot fix immediately. For the
True.
next day, probably next release you can do it. But how are you monitoring it?
Right.
Okay, and how do you know ahead of the time that you can go and fix it? So that I tell people, everybody, this is this dialogue of mine, people will always get bored of. I say that it's all about what have you done today to make your tomorrow better.
True.
Okay, and that's what the live sites is about.
Right.
Is what have you done in this live site today? What kind of discussions you have? What kind of decisions you made in this week are going to make your next week live site easy?
Right.
Okay, so in a way, all this encompasses process. So I'm not giving you a single thing.
Right.
No,
I understand. I'm seeing outside Microsoft that people become very religious fanatics about a process, and then they will wave the book at you that this is written in the book. In Agile we should do this, and in Scrum we do this. So and my answer is always this, that this process has to be changed, molded, and has to be flexible for the team, because the process is as good as the people following it, and it's not necessarily we go always by the book. And I seen in Microsoft, we never go by the book, we go by the team and whatever the team says. So actually one good key point you said, which I think it's a good takeaway, is that you set the expectation and the rhythm that you will have the tech design review, you will have the life side issue meetings and things like that, and that takes care of, I think, most of the time of things happening. Cool, very good. So next question, Jay, you are in Microsoft for a very, very long time. In fact, all honesty, I got hired in Microsoft because of you. And so my question to you is...
It was because of you. I was just only a referrer to you.
Oh, yes, I can say that. Yeah, you referred me to Microsoft.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a disclaimer.
Yeah.
So what you look for when you are hiring somebody, and more than that, I would like to know one more thing. What you look, what is the red light you look for in a candidate, which is a deal breaker?
So, I know it's an interesting question. I'll tell you something. Every interview, interview process is very interesting, right? Because you are evaluating X number of years of people's experience in an hour or a 90 minutes or whatever it is. Okay, so that's why we try to make sure that the diverse opinions are taken into consideration. Earlier in my career, I used to be the first or second interviewer, and now people look to me to say yes to them so that everybody else can do this. So I used to see this terminology that if I said, so I quickly realized that when I said yes or no, the candidate was going in or not. Okay, then I started not giving my feedback immediately, so that others also actually say something, because maybe I'm very opinionated in the way a particular idea or a particular code is written and everything. So for these interviews are very interesting, and I now do what they call the ASAP interviews, or if some senior person is coming, I do the earlier parts of the interviews too. For me, it is all about, I focus on what the person is talking about, his experience. I want to hear about successes and failures. Okay, what did the success do to you? What did the failure do to you? How did you build on top of the failures? What have you learned? You know what I mean?
Right.
And are they taking examples of their failure and the scars on the back, and what have they done differently?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Those are the things. As I told you, there are some people who are very good talking about these things. Some people are not. Okay, so I'm not telling that you need to make a decision solely on, oh, this answer is not correct or whatever it is. Sometimes I hear this and I ask them, what else happened in the interview? One thing I would suggest is, I always give people that I'm talking to in the interview that, hey, I believe in selection game, I don't believe in elimination game. Don't think that if you said an answer, that answer is going to eliminate you from the loop or anything like that. I am trying to see what are the things that you have that I want you to select for. Okay. The reason why I'm telling this especially to you is because you asked, hey, is there any red flag that you eliminate the person, right?
Yeah, deal breaker.
Yeah, deal breaker. So instead of that, I think when people know, I have seen this. I've gone through some stressful interviews myself when I was going through the process, and I have put people through stress in the interview. So I had my fair shake of that too. But I have seen that the people perform much better when they have that. We are trying to see what good they have in them to make the selection. So that's what I tell them. So tell them, hey, don't worry about. Sometimes I see some people they spoil the first question in the coding, and they keep thinking about it, and when they're leaving the interview, do you have any questions for me? They'll ask me, can I do that code again? And I said, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? I was just looking at how you are thinking about it. That question is not a deal breaker.
Right.
Okay. So the moment you give that sense of satisfaction to the person, you know what I mean, that hey, I'm trying to do a selection, then people try to tell all the things. And one question I always ask, hey, 1 hour is very short, at around 45 minutes or so, I say, is there something that I'm not asking that you're very good about that I've not asked?
Right.
Okay. And when the people say this, I say that, oh, that's fantastic, thank you for telling me. We have an individual that you'll be talking later, or blah, blah, blah. That person is very good at this. He will focus on it. Thank you for letting me know. So in that way, the person knows that you have a genuine interest in getting to know. Interview processes are very tricky. I'm telling you, I have the example, I have proud of hiring certain people in the company who did very well. I also have my fair shake. I was so excited about them in the interview, but actually when it comes to the real world, they did not fare that well. So I know, that's why it's a tricky question. I did not want to answer that, hey, I have the a silver bullet answer to this.
Right. No, I agree with you. Interviews are very tricky to judge somebody in an hour. It's very, very difficult. And so, Jay, I know you as a very, successful, accomplished person. You have, I think, 3 master's degree, electrical, civil, and then computer science. And then you went to Wharton, and you are technical fellow now here. So the world knows only about your successes. I want to know about your failures. Tell me about your failures.
So that's an interesting thing, right? I'll tell you, I always remember when I tell this to my kids, and I tell this to, a couple of weeks back, a few weeks back, I was talking to the teens, right? I think the world most of the time wants to hear about your successes. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's why you only talk about them, because as I said, if failures is what actually make you into what you are.
Right.
And I'll tell you something, right out of my 10+2 in India, they said 10+2, I wrote this engineering entrance. And guess what? At the time, I was so distracted. I used to love cricket. I used to play so much that I did not even pay attention to my studies, and I did not get through.
Wow, I cannot believe that you didn't get through.
Okay, so 1 year, and my parents were pretty unhappy because my sisters both did very well in those things. I didn't do. So I sat 1 year at home preparing for the next year and things like that. But during the time I did some things. But if I were to tell that very thing changed me in my life. When I look back, I think everybody needs to do what it takes to have a minimum viable success. Okay? And you need to be you yourself are a good judge for that. Okay? And it can apply to anywhere, and that's what that has taught me. And after that, I became so worried about everything for like first 10 years. That's why you see I did 2 different engineering degrees. You know what I mean? I did computer science, and I was doing a lot more because I was I'm trying to compensate for the thing that I had. But it came in handy because in a way it taught me something, that every time you need to assess yourself
Right.
Where are you? Are you doing enough to make sure that whatever the success that you want to achieve,
Right.
whether in a product, whatever the form it is,
Right.
that you are doing the minimum required to be able to meet it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And the second thing is, are you having fun?
Right.
Okay. If you're not having fun and if you're always at this stress, probably that's not the place to be.
True.
Okay.
True.
And so after the first 10 years of this, having that, I was doing everything over, and after that I looked at and I said, am I having fun? And I started doing, am I curious about certain things? Okay. And these are the two things that became very important for me. And in the projects also, I know I won't take by name, there are certain projects in which they were not successful. You know what I mean? They did not get the commercial success, or they did not get the collaboration success that I wanted to.
Right.
Some were because of my underestimation of
Right.
what I wanted to build. Some were because of I did not seek the support of people
Right.
that needed to get, you know.
Right.
And so only one thing that now I look for is, whenever you have a failure, you need to actually have a notes of what are the things that you learned out of it.
True.
Okay, it's not just about writing it down. And when you're writing your next vision talk, when you're writing your next project, just look at them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes when we meet people that work, you know, we worked on in the previous projects or anything, and we meet, that's what I tell. Do you remember, man, in that one, this was the learning. And you know, you repeat.
True.
And that's the repetition is only because I read somewhere that your memory is about how you remember things. It's not about what exactly happened.
True.
Okay. So that reinforces that some of the things that you want to keep in mind.
True. True.
For your future things. I know maybe I was too theoretical here, but hope it answered the question.
No, I get it, and it's very interesting to know that I always saw you as a very studious and very smart person, and I never would have imagined that you failed, you know, in engineering test. And I asked about failure right after the interview because, you know, a lot of people fail interviews. And my message to anybody who is listening is they should not take it too personally, because we know that in Microsoft and all, we interviewed thousands of people, and often when people not got selected, but they did very well in everywhere else. So failures are, I feel, it's a concentrated dose of learning.
Yep.
It teaches you a lot, and often I see it's a blessing in disguise. So Jay, I would like to know the worst advice you heard about management.
So I know I got an advice. I got good advices too, because you remember good advices more.
Right.
But I also got an advice where early in my career.
I can give you one of mine so you may remember. Once somebody told me, the day you will not have VS Code in your laptop, that's the day you become a successful manager. Because till you keep coding, you are not a good manager. And I looked at him and I was like shocked, because Microsoft culture was not that. Even if, you know, VP level people code. And here the guy was telling me, you shouldn't be coding if you are a manager. Maybe in certain circumstances is good, but I felt that was one of the worst management advice I ever got, that don't be technical.
Actually, ours is, maybe it is from the same person, no, I'm just kidding. But this is exactly the advice I got, because I used to be very focused even when I became an NM2 and things like that. I was very focused on my own individual contribution. How do you learn? How do you do things? You know what I mean? Being able to code, being able to look at check-ins and, you know, things like that, so that at least you get it. So I got this advice that when you become a manager, you need to only look up, not look down. Okay. And maybe I misunderstood, you know, giving the credit to the person. Maybe I misunderstood his advice. I will say that, you know what I mean? if that person is watching this, I did not want him to feel bad because maybe I misunderstood, but that's how I took it, and I was not enjoying, that I was trying to putting in action, and I did not enjoy, and in the end, I went back to my thing of you need to do the things that you enjoy, that impact the passion, because when you do the things that you enjoy, people also actually enjoy working with you because you're having fun, and people would like to join the fun thing. They don't want to join the sorrow show, right? You know what I mean? So I think there are many. I know I got several investment advisors, very bad investment advisors, but anything like that. But one thing I would tell you is you can just not blame one person for advice they have given. This is one thing I'll tell you is because there is no silver bullet answer for a thing in the world. It's all, this is where I think you can call it situational leadership or whatever it is. You need to put everything together and do the right thing for you.
True.
And you need to take, you need to have your personal board of directors that you can refer to and say, hey, this advice I got confused. Did I misunderstand it and things like that? So that you need to do that, because even in advice, how you implement, you are responsible for it. You know what I mean?
True.
So, I'm giving a lot of advices here.
No, that's good.
So in the end, it needs to be put in the context of what you're working on.
Okay.
And you are the best judge.
For the worst advice, you were referring to some book.
Yeah. So okay, if I tell the book name, the person would know exactly who he is.
Okay.
So I was given this book called 48 Laws of Power. It was actually it talks about from the history. What are there is a book and in which actually they give a lot of examples. They're brutal and ways to come into the power. And when I read it, I said that, man, I don't want to be anything close to this.
Wow.
Okay. So at least, there are like at least 5 rules, and I won't repeat it here, but
sure.
Which I never do to become.
Which is written in that book, the
48 laws of power or 48 rules of power. I forgot even the context of it, but so
how to become powerful.
Oh man, you have good memory, Rafa.
Good. So Jay, now we were talking about being coding and you were managing such a big team. So this question often comes in my mind. When I look at Guthrie in a lot of conferences and all, he's coding, showing the code and all. How important do you think this knowledge of coding and you being technical and your hands dirty at this level where you are so high up? Do you still code? How technical you are?
So I don't. Let me be very frank. I don't write any production code.
Of course.
Okay, but I do code. Okay.
So you do code.
I do code for much less than what I really want to.
Sure.
The places where I code is when I'm trying to learn new things. I look at the competition and if their API is there and I want to learn about it. I look at GCP. GCP came up with Anthos recently. I played with that. You know what I mean? I'm playing a little bit with AWS, Neptune, and all this kind of. So you need to know exactly what else is there. Okay, so that you're not blinded by just what you're doing. You need to know. That's number one I do. Second thing is, if your product is giving an API, if your product gives an interface to your customers,
right,
you better know how to use it.
True.
Okay, because I've seen situations where, I was in certain kind of an awkward conversations with somebody else where the person asks and they say, oh, I don't code and let me ask this person and everything. But the confidence you give to the other person, and you will generate empathy and sympathy for your customers.
True.
When actually you code. So at least whenever our SDK comes out or anything, I make sure I code those things. Yeah, play with it. I sample and I write a sample code. You know what I mean? So that at least you know what you are giving to your customer.
True.
And you see Scott Guthrie is best at that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? He can, I have been watching him, and whatever the product actually that comes out, he goes and codes, and that's why he has so much connection with all the developers that,
Right.
in his career. And so there are a few things that I do for learning a new space and what you're giving to your customers. And the third one is, I do this just to get an out of in a curiosity.
Right.
Is sometimes when I see I'm doing a code review, or I was in a design review, somebody wrote it some way, and I'm an old school guy, and I'm 22, 25 years I've been coding, and there are certain constructs, there are newer constructs, and I see that I was taught that you cannot do this, and when actually you see the things have changed,
right.
Then I actually go and stand corrected, where I need to learn new, or oh man, still those rules are correct, so that you can go back to the developer. Don't shame them, but go to them and say, hey man, that day when you were actually looking at code, I was thinking, hey, you questioned my knowledge,
right.
and I actually went and did this perf test, and in this is still performing well. And when you show it, the person actually, his eyes light up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Okay, and see,
Right.
am I doing something wrong?
Right.
And for the third reason I code. So it's, maybe I'm giving from my latest examples, but I know lately I've been helping my daughter in some projects, and she's working on something that is all the youngsters work on, and so they said, oh, let me sit next to you, and I know she thinks I'm slow, but anyhow, I still work with her.
Good, because why I asked this thing, after leaving Microsoft, I went to East Coast, and I have a pretty large team there, about 100 people or so, and always I have this tussle with my management, senior management folks, that you are too technical, you are into code, and why you try to do that. And my thing is, I learned from Microsoft, no matter how high up you are. So you said you do code reviews too once in a while, right?
Yeah, so there are two places where I do. I don't do formal code reviews, but actually whenever a new developer comes and joins my team, I look at their first check-in that they do.
Okay.
And I send them a mail. Hey.
See, that's a very good tip. So they know they are joining
not
a
tip.
team.
Don't take it as a tip, but it is just
Right.
out of curiosity, right? Because sometimes you can connect with them.
Yes.
That's how I see as the mode.
Yeah.
You can connect with them. Hey, congratulations on your first check-in. Blah blah blah. That was a very good piece of code, or things like that. So
wow.
I think the last formal code review or anything that I have done or left comment is probably at least 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
Not done in the recent days. I know I should not be, but I do read the code. I sync it time to time. Certain places where there's a lot of live site incidents, I go look at them.
Okay.
And the code, and talk to the people who things like that. But it's not a code review. It's like more understanding.
So that's very good. I was about to ask you next question, but I think you already answered, like how you keep up, because so much happening, hundreds of dev writing code. Looks like you are still pretty much into weeds of code, and what's happening. So the last question I have, Jay, do you have any recommendation for a best book you read which really affected you big time, helped you?
So if I have to, I can tell you the recent book. There's a book I read which I really liked. Somebody in my team actually recommended. The book is called Loon Shots.
What is it called?
Loon Shots.
Okay.
It's a Safi Buckles kind of book. It's a pretty good read. You know what I mean? That's one thing. And I read quite a lot lately. I've been very, very interested in all the healthcare because of the situation that we are happening. So right now I'm reading this healthcare data interoperability.
Okay.
How exactly it came, and Tim Benson wrote a very good book. I was reading on that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? There is something called Mission Code Crowd, another book which is pretty good. If there is a book
for management,
if there is a book that I know, I got introduced to one book my dad gave me. Is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, Dale Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie.
Yes.
Okay. So I remember my dad used to say, "Did you read that book?" You know what I mean? Whenever you're going into the job, you need. I know there are certain things. The things have changed, but it's you know, I have still the notes from when I read it. There are a few things that I captured, and I think it was my first maybe non-technical business, you know, kind of reading.
Okay.
It's still a good book. You know?
Yes. I remember reading that book too when I was in school, and I think it influenced me a lot. So yes, that's one of the best books. Cool. So thank you very much, Jay. I really appreciate. You are a very, very busy man, but you took time to speak to us. I hope your this advice and wisdom will be affected to many youngsters. And our audience is, I always think about, you know, kid in India, Pakistan, Cairo, or Jordan, looking at these videos who don't have access to mentors who can, you know, learn from these videos. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I would. Thanks for having me. I know I try to give from my personal learnings, but I would love to hear from your viewers also. If there are certain things, you know, that they want any extra commentary on, or they disagree on certain thing, I would love to hear from them, because, you know, it's all about feedback, right?
Perfect. Very good. Yes. Very good. Thank you very much, Jay.
Okay.